Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So I did do an overview for the first 2 hours of the game. I'm flirting with the idea of doing reviews instead, which is where I'd actually put more time in and hopefully clock a game. In this case I did. It was about 16 hours plus change and I saw the credits roll. However, there's still a lot of collectibles and side stuff to go back, so there's more time to be spent there, which I would gladly do. You know, before I lose the lead, I very much enjoyed this game. It was great fun. It's got a few issues, and we'll talk about it, but as far as maybe reviewing a game every couple of days, potentially doing a ranking system, 1 to 100, these are things that I'm looking at the moment, but for now, let's just talk about Indiana Jones. So the game stands up. It's actually fantastic. If you're an Indiana Jones fan, specifically of the original trilogy, you know, the 80s OG, then this is a bit of a love letter to that period. In almost every way, it absolutely nails the original sort of mouthfeel of Indy. There's one glaring problem, but we will come back to that, just bear with me. Oh, and also, before I forget, B-roll in the background, it's just some post-game general footage of collecting some bits and pieces. Through a calamity of errors, I've kind of lost my hard drive full of all of my footage, so it's a bit tragic, but I guess we were due for something like that eventually. But yeah, it is very much channeling old school Indy, not, you know, flog a dead horse, modern. I don't think I've even seen the last 1 or 2 Indiana Jones movies. I'm just not really interested. I enjoy the legacy, but this is a legacy project, throwback to that time. You're essentially globe hopping around the world. We'll say that there's 3 main biomes. There are a couple of little sort of side things in there, but I don't want to get spoilery. But broadly speaking, the structure is that there's these 3 areas that you'll spend multiple hours in learning the map. They're not quite Metroidvania, but there is back and forth as you unlock things like new keys that open doors or even different disguises that might give you access. Like in the first area, the Vatican City, you get like a clerical outfit, so that allows you to get into places where only like priests are allowed to go. So there is that sort of evolving, opening up more options as you go through, and it's quite engaging because, again, anything in that Metroidvania back and forth space, it will fall over if the environments aren't nice, right? Another example is things like the Resident Evil games quite often do exactly this as well. But if you had a bland, boring, unengaging, unpleasant to play in environment and then you make the player go back and forth, it doesn't really work. So it works really well here. It's something they've really nailed is all this sort of environmental design and all the mystique and mysteries around it. So it's all good and well to just have of the era patrolling Italian and German troops, etc., in these regions. But having these little tombs and secret areas, like the footage I'm putting up now is in Giza, and you're going in and, like, I even just happened upon some random tomb, and that turned into a whole side mystery as well. So it does tap that feeling of what is a touchstone that most will get. When you first played an Oblivion or a Skyrim game or whatever, and you walk and then you realize at the top of your compass that you can, you know, oh, there's a ruin there. And then you go into it, and then before you know it, you've spent half an hour exploring that ruin that was just off the beaten path. That sort of exploration wanderlust is here, and it's great. So yeah, look, the combat's interesting. You've got like a pretty basic fighting style with combos and dodging. It's kind of sloppy, to be honest. And it's one of those things, the better you get at the game, the more invested, the more the controls kind of show that they are kind of low fidelity. The platforming's the same, you're hooking around on a whip and that sort of thing. And as soon as the game starts going, well, we're going to put you in a collapsing reenactment of a tomb falling apart and you have to run out through a puzzle bit under pressure, it all sort of falls apart a little bit because, yeah, there is an imprecision to it that seems intentional, and I can only assume it's to create more of a sort of chaotic, cinematic feel, but the missing precision in the controls actually becomes quite noticeable. It's not terrible or anything like that, but it will stop this game from being a great, right? It's probably worth mentioning, like, narrative. It's right at home. I don't even want to talk about any of the specifics other than it's a great little sort of Indiana Jones gumshoe detective thread dealing with ancient mysteries that may or may not have a supernatural element. So it's really actually got the idea right of what made the original movie so appealing. And I found the story to be really fun and interesting, dealing with some mythos that maybe I'm not super familiar with. Pretty cool stuff. There's been a lot of talk about Troy Baker's version of Indiana Jones, and everyone's patting him on the back. It's a 50-50 split for me. On one part, when, let's say, the louder moments, when Indiana Jones is yelling and screaming and under pressure, it's actually kind of uncanny how much it sounds like Harrison Ford. So credit where credit's due. In those moments, he's managed to get the mannerisms of him yelling and barking, and I don't know what else to call it. In the quieter moments, it's just Troy Baker being Troy Baker. That's all I can hear. This sort of nonchalant, flippant, I'm cool because I'm disaffected. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's just the dude being him. That's fine, whatever. The industry's spoken, and it seems they want to put him in every single game anyway. So I guess if the formula's not broken, go for it. I'm a little bit worn out on sort of one-shot characterizations. Gina, the sidekick, she's a bit of an elephant in the room. I like parts of her. She's sort of this bubbly Italian sidekick. You know, she's got a sort of pep to her personality, which could be endearing, but they've sort of engineered her incorrectly. I don't know if the character, or the actress rather, has really done anything wrong, but there's a few parts to it. One, a little bit more mechanical. This game really shines when Indy's on his own, occasionally mumbling to himself, but kind of letting you solve puzzles on your own. But when they throw Gina into the gameplay mix, she's actually insufferable. She is peak side character that talks about puzzles and solves them for you. It's actually wild. You know, it'll be a two-man puzzle where she has to do part of it, and she will just solve it before you even have a chance to engage. It's actually pretty egregious in the actual arena that is side characters over talking and over prompting, right? So she's a really bad example. It becomes kind of day and night when she is or isn't there. It almost feels like two different games. One patting you on the head and one, you know, actually trusting you to your intelligence. Kind of jarring, actually, because why would you split that sort of design philosophy out? It's going to be one or the other. Let the player work it out or baby food the player, right? I don't understand how they did this, but they did. So yeah, mechanically, it's kind of awful having her with you. But there's something very strange about the characterization. I said there's a glaring problem with the Indiana Jones throwback. So they have actually meticulously nailed it. I'm making a big deal about it because the romance angle in this game is absent. At around about like 13 or 14 hours, they have a nearly kiss, and then it's not really come back to. There's no flirtation, no nothing. In fact, the game on multiple occasions has this side character, bloody role-playing as KD Lang. Oh my God, that's another whole thing. But I don't even want to talk about her. But she keeps telling you, do you like Gina? Are you into her? Don't break her heart, right? And it's sort of the epitome of getting show don't tell wrong, because there is no chemistry, there is no flirtation or anything like that at all. And I don't like romance in video games, generally speaking. I find it clunky and ham-fisted and it doesn't really work. But in this case, they clearly want you to have some sort of romantic something with her, but they refuse to actually do it and instead try and tell you that it's happening. And to me, it's very overt and honestly intentionally avoided. And I can only assume it's because modern developers having an aversion to Indiana Jones's sort of roughhousing, manhandling, roguishness, right? It's not even him. It's Harrison Ford. Like, think about his relationship with Leia as Han Solo. He's the same character, at least, you know, in that roguish charm kind of way. Throw in the soundtrack, you know, the love themes that you will have for both like Marion and Leia. I think it does a disservice to the character and the fandom to kind of retroactively trying to raise the romantic cheekiness and the banter that you could get from a male and female lead in this setting, because that's how it's always been. So it seems pretty obvious to me that's what they've done. They've tried to make her a bit of a strong, independent woman on a kind of second wave, you know, a bit more subtle than what we've seen in previous game dev. But she does grandstand a couple of times about trying to scold the boys and how she's a strong woman that doesn't need saving. So it's in there. If you're a bit prickly about it, they've tucked it away way back into the late game and they've made it less offensive than normal. But to me, it's, I don't want to lose the forest for the trees. The fact that they nailed everything about Indiana Jones and so wholeheartedly just got his character right in every way. It's so obvious. It's not that they accidentally left the romantic banter out. They've chosen not to do it, and it's a bit of a slap in the face. But yeah, look, all in all, it was a really fun game. All the collectibles and that, I'm not really a collectible dude these days, but if you are, you'll kind of love this. There's a lot of quality of life to it. The way that his journal works and the immersion from that. Like I said, at the moment, recording B-roll, I'm just going around mopping up bits and pieces. You can buy these little pamphlets now that show where the location of all the little photographs are. Anyway, I think I've covered it broadly. It's a great game and, should be celebrated, enjoyed. I still stand by paying $120 Australian for it brand new is so fucking steep, right? And it's a tough one, right? Because should you be spending your money on video games anyway? Right, they're toys, you're an adult, there's probably other things you could buy, so whether it's $10 or $120, to me it's all still expendable money, and that's going to come down to the individual, right? But it's steep, it's on Game Pass, I don't see why you wouldn't check it out there, put it on your wish list, get it on sale, that sort of thing. Or if you do have fuck you money, I guess go and get it, that's your decision. But yeah, not to go circular, it really does pick at me that they intentionally gelded Indy. And through the course of it, they've denied any sort of chemistry between the two main characters. And for two different people sitting in two different voice booths doing their lines, they seem quite competent and cool characters in their own right. But it's almost a great example of how you can wreck an entire chunk of your game inadvertently in your pursuit of trying to remove things that you deem problematic. Anyway, team, thus is my review. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.